let me introduce, as a way of introducing my area of contemporary Malayalam green poetry. Let me actually observe a few preliminary points. Any discussion on ecology and literature will involve a critical re-evaluation of the prevailing modes of literary criticism, their objectives and concerns, and the relation between art and society in the context of the massive reorganization of the literary field itself in the wake of many of the developments in the late 20th century. From 1990 onwards, we have been witnessing a number of theoretical and intellectual kind of intervention, raising very fundamental questions regarding what exactly is the idea of the literary, what the relation between the human and the non-human. Why do we actually use language as a mode of creating a world for our own expression, for our own effective, what you call, linkages with the world? These questions have actually assumed some urgency, mainly because there has been a shift of paradigms in both the way of writing, in the production of literature, and also in which literary criticism, the critical examination of literature is actually conducted. I would actually argue that 1980s and 1990s were a period of massive transformation in the sensibility of Malayalam poetry. And we actually find a kind of end of a period. We very often describe it as the modernist phase in Malayalam poetry, which began sometime in the 50s, becomes a very well-defined period, very well-defined movement in the 60s and 70s. And by 70s, you can actually see a stage of self-criticism is emerging even within what you call the modernist mode of poetic writing. So modernism definitely revamped the very concept of what's the aesthetic of poetry, from progressive romantic phase to the modernist, meant a set of transformation in the manner in which the idea of poetry is actually taken forward. Particularly the experimental, avant-garde, high modernist idiom questioned a few assumptions about what's literature. Is its social function, the very idea of the commitment to the social. All these were subjected to several rounds of questioning. And what you had in the high modernist mode was a highly charged imagistic idiom, uninterrupted flow. If you read Ayyappa Panikar's Kurukshetram, some of the early works of N.N. Kakad or R. Ramachandran, or there are many poets, this first generation of high modernists in Malayalam poetry, they definitely revamped the very idiom of Malayalam poetry.